let's see what we're up to today. I'm gonna take a measuring square just because this was handy, and I'm gonna measure my ride height here. I'm gonna measure from the center, I guess. So it's about 3 inches from the center of the wheel to the fender. And what's it look like over here in the front? Oh, 3 inches in the front. Now I have a reference. It's 3 in the rear, 3 in the front. So let's take a look. Ooh, got some coilovers. I bought the Navic ones. I had the spring rate modified from what they normally sell. 3K in the front, 4K in the rear. I believe that's what I did, and that's what's gonna go on the car. As you can also see, I got new wheels with the tires on them, so no more of this dry rot stuff. Actually, this one doesn't look too bad, but I have worse ones in the front. Since I'm gonna take the wheels off for the first time on the car anyways, I might as well do these coilovers. They look pretty easy to do. My alignment's probably gonna be all messed up afterwards, but that's a different problem. Simple enough to do. 2 bolts up top, 2 bolts up top, 2 bolts on the bottom on the other side when the wheel is off. 2 bolts on the strut tower there, and 2 bolts on the strut tower on that side. Oops. Okay, so looking at how this thing works, this is just standard coilovers. These are actually my first set of coilovers on any car I've ever owned. So it's going to be a little bit learning on how this works, but it seems pretty simple. Height adjustment with the little special spanner wrench. These, you can push these up and down. Up top is like camber and caster adjustment, I assume. Might just be camber. So mounts just right back in here like the stock unit. Seems pretty straightforward. Over here, 2 bolts. Goes right through onto the knuckle. A brake line holder right there. And up top is 2 bolts. So this whole thing should just come out. The new unit has the same stuff. Holes for 2 bolts. Holes for the a clip for the brake line holder. And the 2 bolts on the top. You gain the adjustment of height and you gain the camber adjustment. So you need 2 17mm sockets and put one on each side and crank them off. The lower bolt's kind of tight, can't really fit a socket in there, so I'm gonna use a wrench. The brake clip looks like it's friction fit. I am gonna try to push it by hitting it with a screwdriver this way. Yep, looks like it's starting to move. It's just a clip, you kind of push it out and it should pop out. There we go. So, clip pops out. Put it somewhere safe so you don't lose it. And the brake line should come free. There it is. I'm gonna leave these bolts in here for now because there's a bunch of tension on it. This arm is drooping down. It's still attached up top. I'm gonna remove the 2 nuts up top and allow this to droop down. And then from there, I should be able to easily remove these 2 bolts. Okay, so we come up top here. I was too lazy to lower the car, so I just got my ladder. On the left, 2 bolts. On the right, it's a little bit tricky because there's stuff in the way, but also 2 bolts, same like the other side. This is 12mm. There's a bolt here, and there's a bolt in there that holds this pipe together. It's a 10mm nut on both ends. Let's see if I can take that off and take a look. I'm just going to start off by loosening it instead of removing it completely. See what happens first. Especially that inner one, it might be harder to put back if I need to. This outside one is fine. I should be able to just pop this back in, so I'm going to remove this outside one. Little screw. Put it aside, don't lose it. Take this off. That actually might allow it to move enough to get this in there. Oh yeah. So loosening the inner bolt, undoing the bottom bolt, the outer bolt, allows this to shift enough for me to get my socket on there and pop that nut off. I'm gonna leave like 2 threads on just in case it might want to drop. I'm gonna see what it's like on the other side. Okay, checking the other side. It seems to stay in place. It doesn't want to drop, so I'm going to remove the other nut, so now it's fully released up top. Let's go back downstairs. I think this is going to go back up there. Line it up so these nubs go through the holes. Might have to take those protective covers off. Take them off now, I guess. There's these little rubber things I'm going to take off to protect the threads. I'm not going to take the chance of it not fitting through the holes, so I'm just going to shove that in. Okay. Looks right. Now, currently these are way too short. As you can see, that was too short. I can do this, and this part will come out and make the whole strut tower longer. Obviously, comparing to the one on the floor, I should probably start off with it at least the same distance. Sounds fair. There's still about that much thread in use, and close. I believe the round side faces out and the flat side faces inward. So I'm going to keep that side facing out, and the Navic sticker faces out, so this is this way. And let me put this in there. I reach up, put the nut on one of the threads. That way this can stay on. Put the other nut on too, so it's a little bit more secure. There's 2. Finger tight it so it stays up top. I'm going to use a jack to jack up the control arm to help it align with the new coilover. As you can see, it's now lined up. I can fidget this around and pop this guy in. There we go, looks good. Put this bolt back in. Look at that, perfect. Where did I put the other bolt? Found the other bolt. Put this back in too. Alright, after fumbling around some more with this, I realized I had the wrong strut on here. And let me show you what you should be looking for. So there's a short spring and there's a long spring. The long one goes in the rear, so that's pretty simple. However, mine were mislabeled with the front right on the rear springs and a rear left on the front springs. And I only noticed this because I took the whole assembly back out and I wanted to see. And I noticed there's this little writing on the spring, and this one says 4K and this one says 6K. So that's when I realized, hey, I've got the 4K up here. I should have the 6K in the rear. And I did the swap and it fit perfectly. Let me show you a good tip on how to put this clip back on the brake line. I was struggling with this for a little while and eventually fumbling with it. It worked. So I noticed if you remove both, before you put the knuckle on, you put the clip on. So right here, it gives you some free room for this to kind of flop about. And then that way, there's less tension on the line, and it allows you to slip this on with nearly no effort. Let me try to do this without blocking it. There it is. So now that I figured this blunder out, let's move on. Now put these washers back on. Okay, that looks good. You can see the whole new setup with the camber adjustment up top with the two 12mm bolts. So remember, this was pushed aside. You can tighten this with your ratchet. Don't crank them down too crazy. It doesn't take that much to tighten this. I believe in other cars I've worked on, it's only really like 35 foot-pounds. So I'm just gonna tighten it as much as it took for me to just get them on. And then this one, ooh. So this is a little bit tricky. Put you guys over here. Out of the way. Yeah, there we go. That should be good. That's one side done. Do the same for the other side, and then I'll show you the front. But hold on, don't forget, you gotta put these guys back on. Put this hose back, and you gotta put this bolt back on this. So everything tidies up. So I'm all set on this side. Let's do this side. Whoops. Okay. Push the bolts through, put the nuts and washers back on. I'm going to spin this lock nut back down so it's somewhat close to the base here.